Take projection.
It's Friday morning, and you know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Alabama Slam podcast. I'm your host, Corey Hanna.
What's going on, guys? It's Patrick Akers.
And let's get a little housekeeping out of the way real quick. So I want to direct you to our Twitter if you don't follow us already, at Alabama Slam Pod on Twitter and Instagram. And we're part of a network of folks called the Alabama Take. You can go to thealabamatake.com for almost daily updates. We've got a bunch of podcasts with other collaborators and people. Blaine Duncan, the head of the Alabama Take, has a weekly pop culture podcast called Taking It Down. There's a weekly sports podcast called Taking on Sports. There's a monthly book podcast called Check Your Shelf. And a new monthly recurring monthly podcast called That Song Sucks or This Song Sucks. And whenever we can get around to it, I've got a podcast with some buddies of mine called We Are a Star War. And clearly we just talk about Star Wars. So, and if you want a t-shirt or sticker or anything, you can go to tpublic.com and just search Alabama Slam and look for our logo and buy one if you feel so inclined. But let's get into it for the week. I'm going to start with SmackDown from last week. And a couple of the big stories, well, the big story, obviously, that we're following there. Sami Zayn and Paul Heyman had a little showdown during the show. And let's just start off with that. Patrick, give me your thoughts on what's happening and where you think this is all heading.
I mean, the more and more I see of Sami Zayn showing up on SmackDown, obviously he is on the SmackDown brand. He also showed up on Raw, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Are they going to do this thing? Are they going to make it a triple threat at WrestleMania?
That's where I wanted to head at a certain point. Was I kind of feel like they may or somehow something's going to go down this weekend where it may not be the cleanest win or whatever. Something's going to happen, and I think they're going to set up a triple threat at Mania.
I mean, look, there's precedent for it, right? You go all the way back to WrestleMania 20. Triple H and Shawn Michaels were having their feud. Chris Benoit entered into the main event scene. I believe he won the Royal Rumble that year, and so he was put into the main event scene between them. It was a triple threat at WrestleMania, and Chris Benoit walked away with the title. I don't know if they do that this year or not. It seems as if, they're just kind of teasing us with this. Oh, maybe Sami could do it. And then obviously come Saturday night, Jey Uso is going to show up and super kick Sami in the face. And Roman Reigns will walk out of Montreal victorious. And Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens will team up to take on the Usos. I don't know, man. I don't know how you keep this guy out of the title picture at this point with how hot he is. I mean, we are talking about something that they haven't seen in a while, having that over of a babyface, and now they kind of have two of them in Sami and Cody Rhodes. So I don't know, man. I mean, this particular promo between Sami and Paul Heyman, it was great. I love how they are bringing Sami in as kind of like this intruder. And then I love the little part with Sami and Jey Uso backstage.
Yeah.
That was such a great little part. And then obviously at the very end, Paul Heyman telling Jimmy he wants him to stay back Saturday night because there's some things that you see on TV that you don't see in person, which I guess in kayfabe, these wrestlers just don't watch the show. And I mean, I guess it kind of makes sense. Why would you, right? But yeah, it's just they have no idea. But I guess they're also like not on Twitter.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't know. There are weird little things like that if you just think about too much, the logic kind of breaks down. But it's wrestling, so whatever. But yeah, I thought this particular promo was great. Sami has a lot of fire. He is showing off that old school babyface fire that he had back in Black and Gold NXT that made him such a fan favorite there. So this was great, yeah.
Yeah, I keep seeing headlines that are like, yeah, people inside the company don't think that Sami can carry the weight. And I'm like, what? Okay, look, you made this happen. you did this. Like, this story didn't just start on its own. Like, this is a story idea, and the people caught on, and the people reacted to it. At some point, you got to reward the fucking fans.
You know, maybe they think that the Sammy and KO team up taking down the Usos is enough. I
No.
don't agree with that,
Mm-mm.
but maybe that's their intention, or that's their thinking in that writer's room.
I don't know.
Surely there has to be somebody in that writer's room, though, that thinks like us and is like, hey, Sammy's the guy. And we'll talk, we'll after the Monday Night Raw promo between Sammy and Cody, I'm only even more sure of that, but we'll get to that in a second. But yeah, he has to have some champions in a decision making role that are really kind of pushing for him to at least insert himself in the WrestleMania main event. You know, if not outright come out of WrestleMania as a champion.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out at the Elimination Chamber. I'm not even. I mean, I'm going to watch the Elimination Chamber, the actual match itself, but I'm in it for the I'm in it for the Sammy and Roman fight.
I mean, yeah, this is all of WWE right now is circling around three guys, really four actually, because I would throw Jey Uso in there as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, let's pivot to him coming back. You know, it was, a lot of vignettes of Jimmy trying to call him, trying to reach him. There's no answer, no answer, no answer. He's out in the ring by himself, and all of a sudden he sees Jay coming out of one of the fan areas down the steps.
Yeah.
And they get into the match with Ricochet and Strowman, and get the victory, retain the titles. Like we kind of imagined. But I mean, there for a moment I thought, were they actually going to bring him back or not?
Yeah, I think we speculated, do they do Solo Sikoa and Jimmy? And do they have Braun and Ricochet take the SmackDown titles away? Because, Solo and Jimmy don't have the reps as a team that Jimmy and Jay have, right? So it makes sense if you're going to do that, then, an upstart team could come up and give the upset. But no, they went with Jey Uso. He got a huge pop when he came through the fan area. So, yeah, this was great, too. I still like Ricochet and Braun Strowman as a tag team. I still think there's a lot of potential there for those two guys.
Yeah.
And, I mean, individually, what is there for those two guys to do on singles runs, right? Ricochet kind of had his shot with the Intercontinental title. Braun Strowman, I mean, he was a big star and was feuding with Roman the first time he was with the company. But now on his second stint, I don't know, he doesn't feel like a big deal.
Yeah.
At all. I think some of the luster's probably gone. So why not team him up with Ricochet and have that kind of, giant and the high flyer team up is always a great team up. I wouldn't have been shocked if they let Strowman and Ricochet get the titles Friday night, but, having Jay come back is probably a good call too. So I thought it could have went either way, and they kept the Usos together for the time being.
Yeah, and we touched on this last week, and they mentioned about, Roman wanting the Usos to stay back and not go to Montreal, and they played up that storyline. Sometimes you see things on TV, like you said, but have you heard anything else? Are there actually visa issues with them this time?
No, I think Meltzer said they're cleared to be in Canada.
Gotcha.
And I would think that this is probably a swerve, that they won't stay back. They'll be there Saturday night.
Okay.
Yeah.
I haven't had a chance to really do any research or anything on it this week, but I kind of figured that's where that was headed. So, well, look, I mean, let's get into some of the stuff from Raw on Monday night. We kind of hinted at that we would be talking about Cody and Sammy stuff. Big segment for the show. I mean, the crowd is in love with Sammy. And at some point, the people inside the company have got to recognize that.
I mean, to Cody Rhodes' favors, and to Cody Rhodes' defense too, the crowd is also super into him as well.
Yeah.
I don't know what you thought about the Cody and Sammy promo. I've given Cody I've had a lot of criticism for him. I thought this was absolutely fantastic. People were so like caught up between the Cody and Paul Heyman promo from a couple weeks ago. I thought this was 10 times better because I thought it had uh, Sammy brought out some of that fire that Cody had, and I think Sammy's kind of chaotic energy rubbed off on Cody in a way that I kind of have wanted. Cody seemed less polished in this
Yeah,
promo.
yeah, man. And then he whooped somebody's ass in his church clothes.
Yeah, yeah. So that was there, and I thought, I wish Cody had a little bit more. And I guess they probably don't want him to be this way because he needs to be Superman, right? They're looking for that John Cena replacement, and the one thing John Cena never had was any doubt about his ability to beat anybody. And I think that was a cool contrast between Cody being in the ring there and Sammy being in the ring, being like, I have to believe this, but do I actually think I can beat him? Like, I don't know. And Cody giving him the pep talk. The whole time when these two were in the ring, I was like, if you don't think that this is the main event of SummerSlam, like what are you watching?
Yeah.
Like the right, like whoever has the title, whether it's Cody or Sammy or whoever, Cody Rhodes versus Sami Zayn should be the main event of SummerSlam.
Yeah, I titled the last episode "Y'all Can Chill with the Cody Business" based on your thoughts on Cody from that week, and now I got to figure out what I'm gonna call it this week.
Look, man, I've like the criticism I've only had against Cody has just been his sort of instincts that he's kind of had. Now, I think that, like I said, I think Sammy brought out a different energy of him. Cody Rhodes, the person, I've tweeted about this a couple of times. I think that, in 15, 20 years, we're going to look back at this time period and be like, Roman Reigns was the most popular star. Obviously, you look at ticket sales and ratings and things of that nature. But in terms of like being the most important wrestler of this generation, I don't think it is Cody Rhodes. Just for the fact that you look at the health of the wrestling business right now. You can go on Twitter on a Friday and Saturday night and look up independent wrestling promotions across America. And for the most part, the really, really good ones are playing to packed houses. And I'm talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people. Defy, which is out of Seattle, had a show last weekend, had Swerve Strickland and Mance Warner and all these people on it. There's like 800 something people there.
Damn.
GCW and Jersey Championship Wrestling co-hosted an event this past weekend, which if you have Fight TV Plus, I encourage you to go back and watch it. Battle of the J Cup. Speedball Mike Bailey and Jonathan Gresham put on just a clinic during session one, but sold out house, packed house, standing room only. Like, it's all across the country right now. And I think Cody Rhodes has a huge part to play in that. Because when he left WWE, he went on this independent run and he showed up at indies all across the country. He was in Ring of Honor. The whole reason AEW exists is because Cody Rhodes and the Young Bucks put their money where their mouth was, and they did the all-in pay-per-view, and they sold out Madison Square Garden, 10,000 plus people. And it was a sea change for American independent wrestling. And it got hot again, like the way it was in like the early 2000s. And I think it's because of him. And I also saw a thing today where he's planning on riding all the independent promotions he wrestled at during his indie run on his weight belt for WrestleMania.
Yeah, I saw that.
It's a fucking great idea. Like, and then we've heard all kinds of stories about Cody Rhodes, people being hurt, or during the pandemic, he was like paying these indie wrestlers bills because they couldn't work. Like, I get why Cody Rhodes is thought to be the face of WWE. He's got literally everything, and by all accounts, no one's ever said a bad word about the guy. It's just the work. It's just the work on the TV shows that are kind of the issue with me. But if he kind of gets a little bit more unpolished in a way that he kind of was Monday night, I mean, yeah, I could I could see this dude doing it.
Yeah, I mean, I was real into the Heyman and Cody segment a couple weeks ago, and I was into the Sammy and Cody from last week. My only real issue has been the speed at which they have put the rocket ship to his back.
Yeah.
That's really my only complaint. Like when you've got this story with Sammy, that I feel needs to be the story. My issue is that Cody's. I feel like they're clearly going to end up with Cody in the long run, but I mean, at least put it on Sammy for like a month, and then let Cody get it at SummerSlam. I don't just spitballing here, and I've said this on every podcast for the last 3 or 4 weeks.
Yeah, and I mean, I still stand by my guns that I think Cody Rhodes is better suited as a heel.
You know that
I think he is.
he came a little unhinged the other night. They keep bringing up his family and his family this and his family and his family, but like him walking backstage on Corbin the other night and then getting that unsanctioned match and whipping his ass, like I said, in his Sunday clothes.
Yeah.
You know, you don't typically see that out of the face. So I thought it was interesting to see him how quickly he became a little unhinged.
And maybe that is the reason they did that is precisely because people have had the same types of criticism that you and I have had. Oh, he's too buttoned up. There's no edge there. No pun intended to the Rated R Superstar edge, but there's nothing there. And so, yeah, go walk backstage and whoop somebody's ass in a suit and tie. I mean, the dude, first of all, Cody's suit game, impeccable.
On point.
Just every time he's a true professional. One thing I forgot to mention about this promo that I love too, it started off, they were interviewing Baron Corbin backstage, right? And then they were like, something's happening. We got to go back to the ring. And they should do more of that, particularly if they're going to have, the storytelling where things are not set in stone when the show starts. Like anything can happen. It needs to have that kind of rambunctious car crash type energy to it. And I just love the fact that when they cut to the camera and Sami Zayn is in the ring, like the cameraman's like readjusting because he's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, and the shot's kind of like off centered. It's little things like that I kind of nerd out about because I've always talked about like pro wrestling can be broadcast in a different way. Like that's where the true innovation of wrestling needs to happen in, 2023 and going forward. Like we got all the cool moves, motherfuckers are doing Canadian destroyers and 450s out the wazoo. Like I think we've kind of probably tapped out on what the human body is capable of doing inside a wrestling ring. I don't think we've even come close to scratching the surface of
the production
value of it. Yeah. Like how does this look on TV? It's looked studio wrestling. Cause basically if you go watch 1982 Memphis and you turn on WWE Raw, kind of the same thing, right? Hard cameras in a certain spot. It's kind of always, kind of level with right above the top rope for the ring. You can kind of see it. You got cameramen on the outside, people fight to the floor. Like it's still kind of the same thing, but like we haven't seen an element of production, like more kind of things like that brought to these promotions.
Did you notice last night I don't want to skip ahead real far. I just want to throw this out there real quick, talking about production. But last night on Dynamite, how they were commenting on how it sounded in the ring. And you had mentioned a couple weeks ago about how you feel like they've moved mics in closer or hidden some mics somewhere on the ring to capture the sounds better. And I thought that was interesting.
That's a big part of it too, because it brings you into it's another element that immerses you into the world that these promotions are trying to create, right?
But on the other hand, you also, if you're not watching and keeping your hand on those mic faders, if you're the sound guy, you hear like Christopher Daniels say, "Don't you ever put your fucking hands on me."
I like it. It's like, here's the thing though. As long as Tony doesn't think he's going to get any heat with Warner Brothers or whatever, I like that.
Yeah,
I like it being like, who knows what the hell these guys are going to say and what's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, I caught that too on Wednesday night on Dynamite. I was like, oh, they're letting them fight. Because even when Christopher Daniels got knocked down, he was like, oh, fuck, under his breath. And they were like clearly picking it up. The one thing the AEW needs to figure out, and I thought they had it figured out, the shadows that pass by the cameraman when the dudes are in the ring, like looking into the camera during their promos that are in the, like the camera casts a shadow. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
caught that. Have you caught
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that like irks me. Like, why they need to have a light on the camera when they do those things?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, not that it takes me out or pulls me out of the story or whatever, but it just looks a little unprofessional. I like that they put the camera inside the ring for these promos, though. That's
Yeah.
a good call.
For
But
sure.
like WWE's got it figured out. You never see any kind of things like that. Like they're a well-oiled machine when it comes to that stuff. But
Well, yeah. I
yeah,
mean, let's wrap up the Cody and Sammy stuff before we get into some of the other items from Raw. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. They could shock us on the Elimination Chamber this weekend, but I just don't know. I don't know if they're ready to pull that trigger or not.
if you believe what the dirt sheets have said for months, they've all been consistent that the plan from WWE for WrestleMania has not changed. It's been set in stone since like late last year, and they've not deviated from it one iota. So I don't know. Is there a swerve coming, or are they just going to do Cody and Roman, Sammy and KO versus the Usos? I don't know. I feel like it's probably going to be Cody and Roman and Sammy and KO versus the Usos, just because if you do Cody and Sammy and Roman as a triple threat to main event Sunday night, what main event Saturday?
I don't know.
I mean, unless Stone Cold's going to come back next month, unless John Cena is going to come back next month, which could be possible. Unless, who knows, the fucking Rock may show up Saturday night. We don't know. They could be swerving us with that.
Yeah, for all the hints and things that have been going on, I mean, even dropping the little things like on Young Rock last year, where there was that scene of young Roman Reigns and he stops and then there's like chaos in the house and he says, "Acknowledge me."
Yeah.
You know, that they were even saying then, they're like, yeah, they're already dropping hints that Rock is going to be at Mania next year.
I mean, if it's not going to be this year, then there's no point.
Right.
And the ship's going to sail come WrestleMania this year. It's in LA. Roman is the champ. He's going on with his historic tear. If we're not getting Roman versus The Rock this year, I think The Rock will probably never step back inside a WWE ring.
Well, let's move on to a couple other things we've got listed here for Raw. Let's talk about Seth Rollins' boots. Did anybody expect to see that on Monday Night Raw?
I didn't expect to see those boots, but I think I tweeted a couple weeks ago that like Seth Rollins has entered this phase of his career where he's just like, I'm so fucking good and it's kind of boring, so I'm just going to wear a bunch of stupid shit to pop myself because I don't have anything else to do.
It was the cowboy stuff.
The cowboy, at Royal Rumble. I do want to, and it's funny you put Seth Rollins here on these notes because I actually screenshotted a lot of stuff on Seth Rollins. I actually want to talk about him for a couple minutes here. Did you see his most recent interview, or one of the most recent interviews he gave? Did you see any of his sound bites from it?
I think the last one I saw was when they asked him about CM Punk.
Okay, so there's that. So this is the quote that I have here is pertaining specifically to Roman and Cody in the main event at WrestleMania. So I don't know who got this interview with him. It was the snippet I have is from postwrestling.com, but I don't think they're the ones that got the quote. But anyway, they asked him about the main event of WrestleMania, and Seth Rollins says, it's very hard for me to look at that match unbiased. I think I want that match. I want that spot. I want that title. And to not have it, there's a lot of salt in the womb to have to talk about it. So it's difficult for me to analyze. What is Seth Rollins? Like, I guess Seth Rollins is going to be just remembered as the Macho Man to Roman's Hulk Hogan, right?
I mean, kinda. Like, he's one of the biggest stars in the company. but we don't talk about him regularly on the show. I mean, a match here and there, but tonight, I mean, I wanted to talk about the boots more so than anything because it was. I mean, he wasn't wearing these in a match. You know, he was on
Yeah.
Miz TV and then ended up stomping out the Miz. But I
I
mean,
think,
you know, when I started watching wrestlings, I was like, he's just second hand Roman Reigns is the way I would looked at it then. I mean, I like Seth. I think his music is fucking badass. Um, and I mean, he's a great worker, but it's just, I don't know if it's just because of they haven't put him in the right storyline for me to really grasp on or what.
well, they haven't presented him as that, right? I mean,
Right.
he has the moment where he cashes in Money in the Bank at WrestleMania, and steals the title away from both Brock and Roman Reigns. But even then, when he had the title, it was always Roman was the guy, even though
Yeah.
Roman at that time was getting booed, booed out the wazoo from the fan base. Um, so I don't know. It was just interesting seeing those comments that he made, and even going back to the comments he made with Ariel Helwani back at SummerSlam, where he basically was like, I've never been the guy anywhere I've went. Like here in WWE, it's been Roman Reigns. When I was in Ring of Honor, it was Danielson and Nigel McGuinness. Like for whatever reason, haven't been considered the guy, even though I want to be. Like, and I don't know. I'm sure and maybe he doesn't because he's getting paid well. His wife's there. I would just wonder if it eats at him not being the top guy, because Roman's not working these house shows, meaning that like Roman Reigns is not going to Des Moines, Iowa, and wrestling on a Saturday night and main eventing the show, and then turn around on the Sunday and going to Idaho and fucking main eventing that house show too. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
Seth is still out here grinding, but I don't know. It's got to eat at him too to see Cody Rhodes just come back, and Cody Rhodes is back, and why is he in the main event now? Oh, because he started AEW, and there's some thing there. Like I don't know, because I think we would both agree. I mean, Roman and Cody are both excellent professional wrestlers. I don't know if either one of them is on the level of Seth Rollins, and maybe that's unfair to say, but
Yeah, I mean, maybe. I mean, you know, there was this thing this week where Cody was like, "Yeah, me and Seth will never get along," and I'm like, "Well, why? Why is he out here worried about Seth Rollins right now? Unless that's going to be a storyline later on. Maybe they're just planting seeds. But like, you know, maybe Rollins is a little salty because like he had to put Cody over with the fucking bloody pec last year. You know, and
well, he
was
put
like,
Cody over 3 times,
yeah."
3 times in a row.
But I'm just saying that last time he was like, "Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, ain't no way this man gonna beat me if
Yeah.
if this was for real."
So, I don't know. The boots thing, obviously Seth Rollins is relentlessly entertaining. He's been on a tear.
Yeah, I ain't mad at that. I thought those were fucking excellent.
Yeah, but it's just, I just wonder, like, cause when you start putting Seth Rollins, you start trying to situate him historically in this era. His era has been dominated by one dude, and that's Roman Reigns. Basically, Roman Reigns and Brock Lesnar have been the guys since Seth
Yeah.
Rollins has been in WWE. But I don't know, like we talk about influence all the time. I think much like if you want to equate Seth Rollins to like a Macho Man, there's a lot of people who still consider Macho Man to be just an all-time great in terms of like in-ring, and Macho Man's legacy is still felt today. I mean, you can go back and watch Steamboat and Macho Man at WrestleMania 3, and like it looks like modern day wrestling, right?
Yeah, I feel like I see way more Macho Man shirts and stuff in 2022, 2023 than you do like Hulkamania.
Oh, 100%. Like if you talk to like an older wrestling fan, say a dude that's like 35, and you're like, who's your favorite wrestler? And he said, oh, Macho Man Randy Savage, you wouldn't bat an eye to that. You're like, oh, yeah, it's a great one. Yeah, I love Macho Man. If he was like being earnest and you asked that 35-year-old, who's your favorite wrestler? And he said Hulk Hogan, you'd be like, what the? Okay, really? Like, that's a little awkward. And I don't know, maybe it will be the same way with Roman Reigns and Seth Rollins. I don't know. I think we both have talked about how great this Roman Reigns tribal chief character is. I think he's one of the best characters in wrestling history, if not the best, because he's kind of playing on all these things that wrestling historically hasn't been. But Roman Reigns matches are all kind of the same. They just start spamming big move after a little while. And like in terms of just the in-ring talent, I mean, Seth Rollins has a litany of just like awesome WWE matches. I mean, go back to I think it was SummerSlam when he was double champ and had the white Power Ranger suit on basically and was wrestling John Cena and like tore the house down. So I don't know. I don't know where Seth Rollins goes from here. I don't know if he's slated to have a big 2023 after WrestleMania. Who knows? But it's kind of odd to have a dude this talented and to have him basically be jobbing out to like Austin Theory and Bobby Lashley. He's got an Elimination Chamber match. He's in there with like Montez Ford and Bronson Reed. Like he
deserves a little better.
Yeah, he's pitched to be on those guys' levels, but his talent is immense. So I don't know.
Maybe they put the belt on Cody and then maybe Seth chases him for a while and that's the story. I mean, maybe that's why they're planting these seeds in the media. But maybe they really do have beef. It seems weird that Cody being the guy that he's been for this so long to put things out there because he's real careful about what he says about the Bucks and Kenny and stuff in press. Like
that's true. Yeah.
And he shows love to him, and then all of a sudden, I don't like Seth. It seems a little odd.
Yeah. So
let's wrap that up and get into Becky, Bianca and Bayley real quick before we move into AEW stuff. This was a fun one. I mean, those three are all on another level. So I guess we'll see. I was still a little confused because they just start throwing shit out sometimes and they're like, oh, this is an eliminator thing. And I'm like, what is this? What are we even talking about? Because like, supposedly was it Becky and Bayley were going to get a shot to be in the eliminator with the others for this weekend, and then whoever gets that gets the shot at Bianca? Is that something went over my head?
Yeah, it was. I was halfway paying attention because Monday Night Raw is kind of still a slog. It's 3 hours.
Yeah.
So let's get a little bit that. So I have no idea.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it was fun to watch. I still was like, what the fuck's happening? And then Bianca got the pin anyway, so it didn't really matter.
Yeah.
Hey! Woo! Oh. My dog almost bit me.
Uh-oh.
She be all right. She's a little panicked because of the storm. So, yeah, let's get into Dynamite then. We typically cover most of the matches, but I've only got a couple or three highlighted here for tonight. First one being Josh Woods versus Mark Briscoe. And the only reason I really want to mention this one is because they announced after the show that Briscoe was officially signed to AEW. And they'll use him in Ring of Honor and AEW moving forward. It's cool to see after not allowing them on the show, like on TV for so long. I'm just wondering what finally made the network give in.
Well, I think it was maybe just Jay Briscoe that they had the hesitation about. Because I think it was his tweet specifically. I don't know if Mark had said anything. So I think it was all a Jay Briscoe thing. Look, Mark Briscoe he's unique and he is entertaining. Every time he's on screen, he makes me laugh, but then he's also believable as like he can beat your ass because he's so crazy.
Yeah.
His what is it called? The kung fu stuff, but he calls it something else.
Redneck karate.
Yeah, something like that. The finger thing just fucking cracks me up. His was it Rampage that they set this up for his backstage interview? He was just so over the top and so animated. So yeah, this is great. I love to see it. Somebody on Reddit, and I wish I could have screenshotted it to give them credit. I mean, not that they're listening to this podcast or anything like that, but they had fantasy booked a ROH tag team title scene, and they were basically like, "Hey, look, I think a cool way for them to do it for this tag team titles is to let Mark Briscoe like defend the tag team title solo, but he defends it against teams that babyface teams that in honor of Jay Briscoe, they only like they themselves just go down to one person.
Yeah.
So you would have the tag team partner that basically just be a manager. And so you have the tag team titles defended in these kind of singles, quasi singles competitions. And then that would, you do that for a couple weeks, and then it sets up just a very easy situation where you can have a heel tag team be like, screw that. No, we're going to go 2-on-1 handicap, basically. And Mark would have to defend it for his honor, the honor of his brother, and everything like that. And then you could just naturally kind of spin those tag team titles off to a heel tag team, and Mark could try to get his comeuppance, but he obviously can't because it's one man going up against two, and then you can spin Mark off and let him go chase singles titles, that kind of thing. I was like, oh, that's a really cool idea. We'll see if they do it or not. Maybe Tony Khan saw it and was like, oh, that's a good idea. I will put that in my notebook. But yeah, just a little cool little wrinkle, I thought.
Speaking of Tony Khan's notebook, did you get a chance to listen to that Mark Maron interview with several of the AEW guys?
I listened to MJF's part and Eddie Kingston. I did not listen to Tony Khan.
Gotcha. Well, yeah, he's apparently pretty detailed about the way the matches are planned out, and he keeps them all in like an old school paper notebook. And I thought it was interesting to hear him talk about it in the way and how far out he's got things lined up, barring injuries, and you got to swerve and figure something else out. I thought most of that podcast was really interesting. I was wondering if you got a chance to check it out, but there were lots of it that I thought was interesting to hear behind the scenes stuff. But
the part that I saw, he was I don't want to say he blew up MJF's spot a little bit, but before they took it, because all these interviews were filmed when AEW was in Los Angeles. And so they were backstage and they were filming a bunch in advance. And so the way the podcast was set up between the MJF and Eddie Kingston one, they kind of paused, and Mark and his co-host would kind of talk about the upcoming thing, and then they would go to the interview. And so Mark Maron kind of let it out that like MJF, when they were talking before the mic started rolling, he was just a very sweet guy, very kind, very cordial. But MJF was like, when we turn these mics on, I'm going to turn it to, I'm going to put the shtick on, so to speak. So Mark Maron kind of blowing up MJF's spot just a little bit.
Yeah.
But you and I have theorized that, right? That Max has to be one of the most beloved guys backstage, because that's the only way you can get away with doing this shit that he does.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting too, though, because his co-host, Brendan, or whatever the guy's name was, is a huge fan and stuff. And I was like, surely he would have known like to edit that out or whatever, because I assume he probably edits the show.
Yeah.
Mark Maron ain't trying to do it. But I thought that was interesting as well. I was like, the salt of the earth thing is probably like in jest, because like most people probably know him as like a super good guy backstage or whatever. And even as lately as last week, there are like things in Twitter and just dirt sheets. They're like headlines that say Tony Khan says MJF is very hard to work with, et cetera, et cetera. And I don't know, man. It's interesting. I did think it was weird that, like you said, he blew up his spot, but I wonder how he felt about that situation after he heard it.
I mean, look, it's probably, I think wrestling fans at this point know that MJF is, it's not that he's putting on a facade. He's just, he's trying to restore old school kayfabe, right? And I respect it. In a lot of ways, he is MJF's character, or MJF, the guy behind the character, is really the most giving to fans, I think, in a weird kind of way, because he has refused to drop this character. So he's not insulting your intelligence. What he's doing is what's the word I'm looking for here? He is rewarding your fandom.
Yeah.
Like, you love professional wrestling, so I'm going to give you professional wrestling 24/7. Every time you see me in front of a camera or on a microphone, this is what I'm going to be.
I'm going to cuss you out if you come to see me at a convention.
Yeah. And isn't that what you kind of want, I don't know. It's we just haven't seen this since anybody do it like this.
Yeah, I mean it is a little strange. I saw something the other day of like Bray Wyatt and this little kid was like, "Hey, I made you this or whatever." Bray's like, "Oh, super, I love it. Thank you so much." He's like, "I got to rush. I'm sorry, man." But and I was like, "Okay, well, this kind of just breaks that whole character." Like you said, it's 2023. There's no way to really keep it up, but like when
No,
people got phones everywhere these days, and you got to think it's got to be hard for MJF to keep that alive. But let's get into last night and his promos real quick. We kind of touched on it earlier and like the sound stuff that happened with the Christopher Daniels thing, but um, MJF's out there doing his promo and says he's got somebody to back him up on what a piece of crap Danielson is, and then Christopher Daniels comes down and is like, "Yeah, no, I'm not taking your money. Danielson is a stand-up dude." Blah 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 blah. So give me your thoughts on this. I thought it was weird. I mean, I know they got Daniels in like a backstage thing now. I thought he retired like 2 years ago, but I know he has actually done some matches recently. I think he's done some on Dark, and then he popped up in the wasn't he in the Jay Briscoe tribute? I believe.
yeah, he was. Yeah.
Yeah, which is cool that he did that. But I mean, just what are your thoughts on that entire segment from last night?
Why was this not MJF and Bryan Danielson with Tony Schiavone out there saying, "Hey, we've agreed to no physicality. If there's any physicality, like MJF, you're going to be stripped of the title. There is no main event." Why I don't understand why Daniels. I thought Danielson wasn't there. I thought that was the gimmick.
Right.
Like, oh, he's at home recovering from the beatdown, which is why we had the pre-tape with him. But then MJF starts beating down Christopher Daniels, and Danielson comes out and makes a save.
Yeah.
I want to see MJF and Danielson in the ring then doing this. It was just, I mean, the MJF, what he said, I mean, he's great as always on the mic, and I thought Daniels, played his part well, basically being like, hey, you think you know this guy, but I've seen this dude be kicking people's heads in now for damn 2 decades. Like, he's the best to ever do it. You don't stand a chance. But like, I don't know, if Danielson is there and the match is MJF and Danielson, just all you have to do is have an authority figure like Tony Schiavone or whoever say there's no physicality or the match is off and your pay is getting taken, but you have this time, say whatever you want to say to each other.
Yeah. I do want to keep it moving because we got some Twitter prompts I want to get to at the end. Let's touch briefly on the Hangman Page versus Kip Sabian, more or less so we can get to the stuff that happened afterward. Moxley is there at the end, and he and Hangman are going face to face and talking about, Hangman says that it wasn't a clean win on the last match. He wants one more shot, and then they can call it done or whatever. And then the Dark Order comes out to back up Hangman, and he gets mad because he supposedly told them, don't come out, whatever. Do you think they're going to, at some point, circle back to that mending fences with the Elite? Because they started doing that at one point last year where they kind of ran into each other. Hangman ran into the Elite once or twice, and they're like, hey, just, how you doing? It's been a while, et cetera, and they were kind of sort of making up. Like, are they going to go back to that at any point? Like, what was the point of those things happening?
I don't know. I mean, if I remember correctly, when they were doing the Hangman the Elite stuff, we kind of hated that shit, right? Weren't we like this bunch of high school?
It was awkward.
Yeah, it's like high school drama stuff. So I hope if they're going to do that, I hope they do it in a more creative way than that. Because that I just felt like that was not good TV whatsoever.
Right, but last night, Moxley was like, "You don't have any friends," and I thought, well, maybe this is where the Elite shows up, and we're like, "Hey," they start helping him out. But then the Dark Order came out. I'm like, I get it; they've been there for him the last few years or whatever when the Elite weren't, but I just felt like maybe that was the opportunity where they reconnect.
I think the Hangman and the Elite reconnection it'll probably be in a bigger moment than that, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. It kind of just makes Doesn't it just kind of make Hangman seem kind of like a dick? That these dudes in the Dark Order have literally been there for him. They've been willing to get their ass beat, and this dude just is still incapable of having any kind of friends.
Yeah, it is a little odd. I
Yeah,
mean, he's obviously stood up for them and with them on multiple occasions, but it did get a little uncomfortable last night.
I liked Evil Uno though, being like telling him basically like shut up, no, we're doing this, and like
Yeah,
he
get
pie
out of my
face,
face.
yeah, pie face John Moxley. I like that.
Yeah,
And, we had speculated this is what was going to happen. They were going to do some kind of last man standing or Texas death match between Hangman and Moxley at the pay per view. I mean, that was we could see that coming. Um, so yeah, I mean that should be a good match. I don't know. I mean, I guess that's what this promo was to set up, right? Hey, we just want to set up this, but I don't know why we brought Dark Order into it. Maybe it'll pay off. I don't know. Maybe there's a Hangman heel turn coming and he turns against the Dark Order, or vice versa. I don't know. I don't really know how you make the Dark Order heels without them having a figure like Brody Lee at the helm that's sort of
right.
an imposing physical force, because they've basically become a comedy act at this point, and that's not
Yeah,
a slight. I mean, they're really good. John Silver and Alex Reynolds are really fucking good at doing the comedy stuff, and you need that for the show. So yeah, I don't know. It was just kind of everything like, I guess Dynamite Wednesday just kind of felt like a pause, right? Or just like we're just going to run on this treadmill for tonight because we don't know. We got a couple weeks to the pay per view and we don't want to blow our wad just yet. So
yeah. I mean, overall, I felt like it was a pretty good show, but at the same time, like you said, I don't know. I think they got to get these stories moving toward the pay per view, but I don't know.
again, when this show Dynamite, it has peaks and valleys, right? Like 6 weeks ago, this show was on top of the world. We were like, oh my god, every week Dynamite is like must see TV. And now we've had 2 weeks of just, oh, okay, well, we're in the dip again, so it'll ramp back up. And then the pay per view, they always deliver on the pay per views.
Yeah, yeah, no doubt. I just hope it's not 7 hours long.
Well, we got 60 minutes of Danielson and MJF.
That's true. That's true. Tony did say that's like one of his challenges is trying to get a lot of people featured on. This was on the Marin podcast. Trying to get a lot of the talent on the pay per view and not run super super long. But I was like, well, you need some work on that. Because he said
Yeah.
he said he's also the timekeeper for things and tries to keep things on time, because that was one of the questions Marin asked him was like some of his roles, and he was like, well, I'm timekeeper like for the live shows. So he was like, Marin was talking about how often are you on TV? He says, I try not to be on TV unless there's a major announcement. And when I'm out there, I try to get in and get out because I try to be, I want to keep everything else on time. So I got to keep myself on time. I'm like, might need to watch a little quicker and get in them refs ears a little sooner.
Or maybe just delegate, man.
Yeah.
There's people out there that have done pro wrestling before, have been doing it for years.
Yeah.
Just delegate
Yeah.
some of that stuff,
You got a bunch of fucking good people in your backstage crew, man.
And you only have so much energy, right?
Yeah.
To do, like, he's just a person. He's not like he can't, all these other jobs, balance, head of creative and the producing and all this sort of stuff like that. Like, I don't know. You got to learn to kind of let stuff go at some point.
So real quick, give me your thoughts on Britt versus Ruby versus Tony Storm before we get to the Twitter prompts.
I thought this was a good match too. I mean, clearly it's setting up for like we talked about a couple weeks ago. If you're going to have Britt and Jamie and Sheeta be one side of this women's kind of division that's going on, then you need, it's just Tony and Saraya at this point, so you need somebody else. And I guess they're going to go with Ruby. Makes the most sense because she has the WWE experience. Also, I like Ruby Soho a lot, so I'm glad to see her in like a high-profile position. Because since she's been in AEW, she's kind of done absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's been kind of a letdown. I had heard a lot about her coming in, and I hadn't really seen anything. But she puts on good matches, and I like her presentation and everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was cool to see her get the win last night.
Yeah, did you see the backstage rumors that they had a women's division talent meeting?
I did, yeah. And we didn't touch on that with Thunder Rosa.
Yeah, so I guess Thunder Rosa is going to come back into the fall, which we still have not. I mean, I guess she had massive heat with the women. I mean, she did sandbag Marina Shafir, so
Yeah, I mean that's kind of what they said that most of the meeting was about.
yeah,
She addressed and tried to play nice and make nice with the talent because of the way she had she had acted
yeah,
and how stiff she was in some of her matches and stuff.
yeah, and just I don't know if it was true that she hid in the bathroom because she was scared Britt and Jamie Hayter were going to beat her ass. I mean, that's I don't know. I guess you can let bygones be good bygones at some point. I did like how Meltzer mentioned, like, hey, if CM Punk was going to come back, he would have to do the same thing, but he probably ain't going to do this. So don't get your hopes up.
Yeah.
Phil Brooks doesn't seem like the type of guy that says, I'm sorry, I fucked up quite that much. So, but yeah, people, I actually posted something on Squared Circle Reddit a couple weeks ago because someone was asking, like, hey, what is Jamie Hayter going to do at Revolution? Like, what's the women's title match? And I was like, she's clearly not going to have a women's title match. She's going to be the main part of this, pseudo kind of NWO thing that they're having. Because I think that this story is bigger than the title at this point, right?
Yeah. I mean, because they're not doing much with her title at the moment.
No, I mean she is spearheading this women that got over in AEW and have been AEW originals. She's the leader of that team, her and Britt, and you have Tony and Saraya, and looks like Ruby Soho is going to be the other side. I mean, that's the AEW versus WWE rivalry is already out there amongst the fans. So, like we've talked about, it makes sense to bring that on screen. And I think if they do the build a little bit better, it could be like the co-main event of Revolution.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be cool.
Yeah,
that's a good storyline.
Yeah, you just gotta it needs to be booked a little bit better here for about this next couple weeks. But
yeah, let's get into the Twitter prompts real quick. Neither you or I could really come up with anything we thought was clever to ask the Twitter folks, the Twitter universe this week. So I just said, we can't think of a good one. So y'all ask us a question and we'll answer it when we record. So the first response we got was, what's your favorite Undertaker match, from Blaine Duncan? As we mentioned, Blaine Duncan is the head of the Alabama Take, alabamatake.com. He wants to know, what's your favorite Undertaker match? I'll go real quick because mine's going to be pretty easy because I haven't seen a ton of Taker matches. I didn't go back and watch a ton when I did start watching wrestling several years ago, because Taker was huge when when I was not watching wrestling. But I've obviously gone back and watched the Hell in a Cell with Mick Foley. Love that one. That's an all-timer. And I'm a big fan of the Boneyard match with AJ Styles. His last match. I thought that was pretty great. That was one of the things I did make a point to try to watch when I had quit watching WWE after I restarted a few years ago. And I saw a little vignette on Twitter about the making of that, and it was really interesting. But yeah, those are going to be the two for me real quick. So you replied to him and said, easy, Taker versus Michaels at WrestleMania 25, and it ain't even close. I'll tell you why in this week's podcast, and that's called a tease, folks.
Yeah, I mean, if first of all, if listeners have never seen Taker versus Shawn at WrestleMania 25, watch it tonight. It is.
So that's my homework, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, dude, it's probably, it's probably the best WWE match that they've done in the last 25 years. I would have to really, I'm not have to think about it. It is. It was, I mean, because nobody even remembers what the main event of WrestleMania 25 was. I don't even know. I don't remember. It wasn't memorable, but Taker versus Shawn, both at WrestleMania 25, and then they ran it back the next year at WrestleMania 26. So WrestleMania 25 was 2009, So Taker versus Shawn was probably the best match. It was the best match in WWE of the 2000s. And then Taker versus Shawn at WrestleMania 26 was the best WWE match of the 2010s. Like, these dudes just had amazing chemistry. You want to talk about dudes who turn it up when the lights are on brightest. I mean, Shawn Michaels is up there with Bret Hart, Kenny Omega, dudes who just, when the lights are on brightest, they put on a show. And this particular match with Taker, everything about it was just so beautiful, man. The false finishes, the psychology of it, the fact that Michaels ascended down from the heavens like some kind of angel and was in all white, and Taker was in the all black coming out like this force, this balance here. I was looking today in preparation for the podcast. Meltzer somehow didn't give it 5 stars. He gave it 4.75, which is just, I feel like now he's giving out 5 stars willy-nilly to everybody.
Yeah.
But this is absolutely a 5-star match.
So
5 star, 6 star, 7
star.
star. Yeah, you got to watch it. Everything about it is just great. And they took their time. They sold all the big moves. It has one hell of a false finish in it where Taker hits Shawn with the tombstone pile driver, and the whole crowd thinks that's it. And Michaels kicks out and the whole place erupts. Like, it is. It's one of my favorite matches of all time, and it's one of the best of all time too, I think.
Well, let's get into the next one. Do quick hits on a couple of these. Blue Gillen on Twitter says, first wrestling memory. Go.
Oh, I think I've talked about it before. 96, Sting, Crow Sting in the rafters as the NWO is in the ring and Sting is stalking them. That's literally when I close my eyes and think about wrestling as a child. That is the first image that comes to mind. I don't think that's the first time I watched wrestling as a kid. I'm sure I had seen it on TV before, but that image of Sting stoic with the black and white face paint up in the rafters, looking down at Hogan and Hall and Nash. I mean, that is my childhood wrestling. We were a WCW household, because we were in Alabama. It's the South. The WCW had its biggest foothold was in the South and the Southeast in particular. So, it wasn't until much later when I went back and watched stuff with Stone Cold and The Rock and things like that. I missed it when it was on TV the first time around, but I watched. I was a Nitro kid through and through.
My first one, I don't know if I've mentioned this or not. There's not a specific memory, but I remember watching WWF on Saturdays with my little brother, and we would watch it before our parents would wake up on Saturday. I feel like it was on fairly early, or either they just slept late. But we would throw the couch cushions down in the floor.
Hell yeah.
And just wrestle the shit out of each other, DDTs and everything. We thought we were the shit. My brother is 15 months younger than me, so we were just hip and hip growing up. And I remember that, and I remember my cousin rented, I guess it was the second or third WrestleMania. It was a huge match between Hogan and Andre the Giant.
Oh yeah.
And when we rented the VHS tape, and because we had heard so much about it, we were all stoked to finally get to watch that one. So the next question from Blue was best event / match that you've seen live.
I'm ashamed to say this. I have not gone to a lot of live wrestling events. There hasn't been a lot around here. So probably the coolest show I've been to live was the GCW show we went to a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say the same thing because I've been to SmackDown once, been to the AEW event, the only time they've been to Huntsville, and then we had such a blast at GCW versus New South in Huntsville about a month ago. That, I mean, for the view and the price and the experience, can't beat that, man.
Yeah, it couldn't have got any better than that. So, I mean, I would probably say, I guess what would you say that GCW show was the best match? The main event?
The main event, yeah.
That's just for the crazy. And you can, if you got Fight TV Plus, you can watch it. Nick Wayne and Jordan Oliver versus, and Los Masitos. I think that's the guy. I think I've got that
That
pronounced.
sounds right.
Yeah, those guys just put on a
Yeah.
bonkers high spots match galore. But yeah, I need to get to more wrestling live.
I need to sign up for Fight TV since it's officially not football season anymore, and I don't have to pay for the sports package
Yeah.
on YouTube TV. I can switch $5 over to that. Yeah, I mean, I need to. I want to go back and watch that event, and one or two of the others from that night as well because they were so fun. But I'd like to see them and see how they looked because it's so different when you go back and watch stuff. Last question from Blue was: if Sammy doesn't win, do we riot? Simply put, yes.
I don't know if it'll be a straight up riot. It'll be.
I mean, I will.
To me, it'll be to me if the riot thing though is like it's got to be unanimous. You know, like the Daniel Bryan stuff at WrestleMania 30. There was not a single wrestling fan that did not think Daniel Bryan should not main event WrestleMania. Like that was a full blown like revolution, revolt against the powers that be. And I think every time somebody says that, if such and such doesn't win, we riot. It always makes me think of ECW One Night Stand, Rob Van Dam versus John Cena, where God, I still think that's John Cena's best match just for the environment. But there's that sign that dangles: if Cena wins, we riot, and they probably would have. If Cena would have won that match, they probably would have jumped the barricade and beat that dude's ass.
For me, this kind of reminds me of the run that Kofi Kingston had a few years ago.
Yeah.
When he beat Danielson and got put through the fucking ringer just to get that match. It was the same thing. The fans wanted it and we ultimately got it. But I feel like, I don't know if we're going to get rewarded in this situation.
And I think the big difference here is there were two world champions during that time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Now there's just one. So you're who can be the world champion if they're going to keep both titles on one person? That pool gets very, very small.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
That is true. And the last question was from Chase Yes Gilmer on Twitter. Looking ahead a bit, but who would you guys choose to win the men and women's Money in the Bank ladder matches?
So I was looking at this. The money when the Money in the Bank first started at WrestleMania, there were huge names that won it for those first couple of years. You had Edge, you had CM Punk, you had Rod Van Dam, and it really was like, here is a main event or quasi main event level dude or someone like a Punk at that time that is young that we're about to put into the main event. This is basically their coronation moment when they win this because they're the next in line. They
let Otis get it a couple of years ago and then stole it from him.
Well, that's what I'm saying. In recent history, it's kind of been like that. Otis was the one guy I was going to bring up where it's just like, did anybody think Otis was going to be champion? I don't think so, right? And I mean, they ended up stealing it from him. So there are a lot of, I think, candidates for this year in 2023. You could do a Seth Rollins again. You could do a Finn Balor, if it's to be believed that Finn Balor's also going to get another big push with new creative. It makes sense. He's a heel right now. I think a heel Money in the Bank winner makes more sense because cashing in on somebody that has already had a match is kind of a heelish thing to do, Although I did like it, and some more people should do this. When John Cena won the Money in the Bank, he just announced, like, I'm cashing in on here, like, get ready, I'm going to do it. Obviously, he ended up not being successful in his cash-in attempt. But, so Seth Rollins, Finn Balor. Do we see a Montez Ford? Is he ready to kind of jump up a level of competition? Now, obviously, he needs to not be with the Street Profits and Angelo Dawkins anymore, but I think he's a dude with a tremendous amount of potential.
Yeah, that split's coming pretty soon, I feel like, too.
But, I mean, we've been theorizing that split's going to come. They had a match at SummerSlam.
That's true.
And we thought against the Usos, and they kind of let the camera linger on Montez and Angelo Dawkins in the ring. We were like, okay, it's about to happen. Montez is about to turn on him, and that just didn't happen. And not only did it not happen then at SummerSlam, it ain't happened since fucking February. And he's still in the tag team. And it's no disrespect to Angelo Dawkins, but, like, You put those two dudes side by side. You're like, who can be the world champion and the face of the company? It's Montez is a hell yes, and Angelo is a hell no. And it ain't.
Yeah.
It's no disrespect on Angelo. Like everybody can't be a champ. You know what I mean? So those would be my three guys. I think Seth Rollins, Finn Balor, and Montez Ford would be that on the men's side. I think on the women's side, it's probably Asuka.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I haven't honestly put a lot of thought into it, but I would go Asuka and Rollins probably.
or Raquel Rodriguez would be my other choice. Because I think Raquel and Asuka are both in the Elimination Chamber Saturday, right? And the winner of that Elimination Chamber goes to face Bianca.
That sounds right.
So,
yeah.
yeah.
I know Asuka is.
Yeah, so I think Asuka probably wins that match Saturday. And then I think, Raquel Rodriguez would be my choice. I think she's got a ton of potential too. And, it never hurts to have different stars of different nationalities. Having a bona fide Hispanic woman atop the women's division is something that, have we seen that before? Has there been a big, I can't think of one. Am I missing? I don't think I'm missing. Is Bailey Hispanic?
I don't think so.
So then, yeah,
I could be wrong.
They haven't had anybody yet. So now there's an opportunity for somebody there. We say all that, and it'll probably be fucking Rick Boogs that wins the damn Money in the Bank, and it'll be the same shit. No disrespect to him, but like, come on. I mean,
he's booging out, man.
He is fucking massive. What has he done? Is he the biggest human being in the world right now? He is swole as shit.
Could be. Where is he? So I don't know shit about this dude. Like, was he around in the past and I just fucking missed him somehow?
Rick Boogs?
Yeah.
So where I knew him from was YouTube. He was a weightlifter dude on YouTube, and pretty popular. And I guess somewhere along the way, WWE just signed him and put him in a damn performance center. And then I saw clips and I was like, who? Does he even know how to play guitar? Why is he playing Shinsuke Nakamura to the ring? What the fuck's going on? They're like, oh no, he's signed to the WWE. Oh, okay. Well, I guess that's what he's doing now. But I mean, he's fine. You need guys like that. So Money in the Bank. Oh, we could throw up a little thing here. Jay White for New Japan he lost his Loser Leave Japan match against Hikuleo. And he has actually coming up, if you're listening to this on Friday, tomorrow night, February 18th, Battle in the Valley, Mercedes Moné makes her return to the ring up against Kyrie, and Jay White is wrestling Eddie Kingston. And there is speculation that Jay White will soon be joining WWE. Could that be a Money in the Bank winner at some point? I don't know when Money in the Bank will. I think it's not until the summer because it's actually in the UK this year. So, I don't know. He could possibly, I guess, make his WrestleMania debut too. The Raw after WrestleMania. So,
yeah.
And then also FTR. Do they come back to WWE? The Raw after WrestleMania? Or,
I don't know, man.
I mean, fuck, they could come back at WrestleMania.
Did his podcast come out yet for this week? Do you know if he answered your question?
He halfway answered it. He didn't know. He didn't know. My question got the most likes out of anyone that got asked, though.
That's funny.
I just thought he would have, but I guess it comes out he's not really keeping up with the WWE product. So I don't think he knew that the Waffle House Usos thing has been something that has Sammy explicitly referenced it in a big time moment in the show that kind of went viral. So they asked it, and then he was like, Dax Harwood likes Waffle House, so that's good. But not a big time answer like what I thought.
I hear you. Well, last two things real quick. Friday night, Rampage will be on early. I'm super excited for Ricky Starks versus Daniel Garcia. And then we didn't touch on the fact that the ROH matches start back, it looks like in March on the streaming service. They're doing a couple tapings at the end of this month, I believe. So that's something to look forward to on the Ring of Honor app every month. So it'll be interesting to see what they do with the roster and how many people they actively use on Ring of Honor and Dynamite versus how many people are going to be just Ring of Honor. I don't think you keep somebody like Claudio on just Ring of Honor. You're gonna have to have him on Dynamite at some point. But I'm curious to see what happens there. But we can talk about that some other time. I did want to just touch on that real quick before we got all wrapped up. But I think that's about it for me, unless you got something else.
No, that's it. The only thing I was going to say about Ring of Honor is I was really hopeful that our favorite Mance Warner was going to be in Ring of Honor, but now it looks like he will not be because MLW, Major League Wrestling, they have a television deal. They're on the Reels channel, if you can find it. I don't know where the fuck that channel's at, but it's a channel, and he's on Tuesday nights at, I think it's 9 o'clock on there. So he's back on television. I would assume he had to sign a new contract to do that, so he probably will not be in Ring of Honor, which is kind of a bummer. If he is also doing indies, though, so GCW is coming back to town in June. You and I are both making plans to go. If my boy Mance is not at GCW, we're going to have to make a fucking trip somewhere and watch this dude live because he is probably one of the most entertaining dudes on the indies right now.
Yeah, gotcha. I'm for it. I'd love to see him. I'm keeping my fingers crossed that he'll be back. He'll be in Huntsville with the GCW, but we'll see. We'll see. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week, man. We appreciate y'all checking us out. It looks like our listens are going up slightly in the last couple of weeks, so we really appreciate all the new listeners. And I do want to issue a challenge to you this week. If you're somebody that listens to the show on a regular basis and you got a buddy in your life that's a wrestling fan, send us a link. Send a link to them of our podcast and just say, hey, I thought you might like this, and maybe you should check it out. That would mean a lot to us, and we'd appreciate it. But I think that's going to do it for this week, and should be a fun weekend. I think Rampage looks really fun for Friday night. Like I said, Garcia and Starks, and they got a few other really good matches. It looks like the spoilers are that Keith Lee returns tomorrow, and then Elimination Chamber on Saturday.
Which should be one hell of a main event. Probably the most massive pop you're going to hear since probably Stone Cold's return at WrestleMania last year is going to happen Saturday night in Montreal with Sami Zayn making his way to the ring.
Yeah. Well, man, y'all holler at us next week, and we'll talk to y'all then.
Later, guys.